Hello and welcome to yet another Sharpe reunion. You guys absolutely adore these. I think this is the 8th one we've recorded, and to be frank, it's one that definitely the historians and the fans really wanted us to do, because we have reached Sharpe's gold, which is bonkers, but nonetheless still absolutely lovable, like all of the other episodes. And we've got a great lineup with us today, inevitably led by Jason Salkey, who has been beavering away to find fellow cast members. How you doing, Jason?
I'm very well, and again, very happy.
I'm loving your modest flag behind you. Of you.
You missed the modest T-shirt.
Excellent. We've gone from Lenin flags to flags of yourself. I like this. We've progressed. We also have with us the outstanding Hugh Ross, of course, Mungo Monroe. Hello, Hugh.
Hello, good morning.
How is lockdown treating you?
Not too badly. I mean, quite sane. Yeah.
We also have with us Abel Folk El Casco. Hello, Abel.
Hello.
Whereabouts are you enduring COVID? In Spain?
Well, it's been quite hard, but fortunately we can keep working a little bit. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm traveling from Galicia to Barcelona because I had a production there of theatre. Oh. I had to fix something, and I'm traveling back to Barcelona.
Yeah. We're not remotely jealous of you now because we're all sitting in rainy England, I think. So you've just shown us wonderful Spanish countryside. Mm. And now you're the least popular person in the room. Okay, so we have Peter Eyre with us as well, Dada Nugent.
Good morning.
Whereabouts are you, and how is lockdown treating you?
It's kind of monotonous because I spent 7 weeks in lockdown in New Zealand, and now I'm doing it again here. Oh. But, there you go.
It is a bit first world's problems, isn't it? We're all healthy.
It's monotonous, but, you have to be very ingenious about how you carry on in your life. But the theatre has disappeared.
They have put 1.5 billion into the arts this week, haven't they? I'm sure I read one music venue in particular, famous music venue's got $1.5 million this week to try and keep it going through this next week.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so
yeah.
We'll see what happens.
So sharp for that.
Yeah, the freelancers aren't getting much.
We also have with us Ian Shaw, Lieutenant Ayres. Hello, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
And you were all shut up in Brighton, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah.
Outstanding. Yeah. I'm completely envious of everybody who isn't shut up in southwest London with just a grey sky and nothing interesting happening outside. We're also hoping to welcome Jake Abraham in a bit, Deserter Donkin, but we also have with us, inevitably, because it wouldn't be a Sharpe reunion without them, Marcus Cribb, who I'm pretty sure is at work. Are you, Marcus? Or are you on remembrance duty?
On remembrance duty.
Outstanding. Marcus is, of course, one of the managers at Absolute House. We also have Zack with us, Zack White, our Napoleonic historian. Hello, Zack.
Hi, Alex. How you doing?
How's your face?
My face is all right. I wasn't expecting that question when I was prepping for this last night.
Last time we had you on, you had blood pouring out of your face because you tried
shaving fails, yes.
Yeah, outstanding. Well, at least you're not bleeding. And we also have with us another Down the Pub regular, Matt Bone, who we love and who is here on the understanding, obviously, that no one ever gets a word in edgeways that isn't one of the cast. Sharpe's Gold was what made him fall in love with history, and he was just so excited. He just wants to bask in all of your greatness. So, hey, Matt.
I'm just here geeking out to an incredibly high degree, so thank you so much for having me. But yes, I've got my copy here as well, which of course can't show up on.
Matt, lovely to meet you. You have heard that I'm writing a book.
I may have ordered 2 autographed copies, one for myself, one for my father.
Then I must send you a signed photograph. Thank you so much.
Jason.
Alex will tell you that there's a little drinking game certain fans play that whenever Jason or someone mentions my book, they take a shot. So that's why we might get a few minutes.
Get it in early.
other than publicising the shit out of it, that's what.
Yeah.
What's it called, Jason?
It's called From Crimea with Love, and it's published by Unbound. You can pre-order now, coming out July the 7th.
and just for shits and giggles, just say the words, I'm writing a book again, so we can get them hammered right at the beginning.
I'm writing a book. My name is Jason Salkey. Great. Thank you for everyone coming on. Gold is a very interesting episode because it's much maligned. I was explaining this in the pre-chat. Because of certain legal problems with the McGann to Bean switch when Sean replaced Paul McGann. They couldn't do one of the episodes scheduled for that year. We were supposed to do Rifles, Eagle, Gold. Gold had to be dropped. They had written the script. They had cast everyone. So basically they owed the money to those actors unless they did a different script. So they chose to do a different script instead. And that's why it's so different from the book. And those who know the books say this is rubbish, it's a travesty. But if you don't know the books, it's a great adventure story. It's scary. It's written by the guy who wrote the Quatermass Experiment. And that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. And I was just watching the other day, and it stands up as a great adventure story aside from the Sharpe canon, but it's also a good Sharpe story. So it's an interesting episode that we're about to talk about. And I actually like it as one of my favorites to make, actually.
Yeah, do you know what you say maligned? I don't know if that's quite the right word, because people don't like it and don't watch it because they don't like it. They just seem to chuckle and go, well, yeah, it's not the book, but it's still Sharpe. I mean, even Sean listed it, didn't he, as his least, when we had him on, he said it was his least favourite because there was just too much going on. But we've got some really interesting questions come in from people to start us off about why it differed. I mean, so we've covered before why there had to be such a grossly different script, and it was contractual because Paul McGann left and they couldn't stick to the original script without paying a fortune. One guy did ask, actually, Jason, do you know, Tom Hutchinson says, how much were you looking at? Do you know what the cost was to use the original script that made them go, oh, no way, we're not paying that?
I don't know. Or the only thing I know is that each episode cost £800,000 an hour to shoot.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, it's not just the use of the script, but it was the paying of the actors. They'd have to pay them twice. So Patrick Malahide and Bill Patterson would have to have gotten double bubble. Now, on Sharpe, that's a no. They, and especially on the third year. What happened was the second year, they really blew their wad on company.
Yeah.
It was the longest shoot, and they spent the most money on it. And it's there on the screen. It does look amazing. I'm not sure if you guys saw Sharpe's Company ever. I don't know. It's the one where they stormed the walls of Baderhof. There's a massive set. There's a massive cast. So they were forced, obviously, to cut back in year 3. So that's why they couldn't go and splurge again on all those actors. So they got some fine actors in. Ian Shaw, Peter Eyre, Hugh Ross, So
they did, and like you say, it's not like anyone. I mean, so for instance, if I was going to rewatch the whole of Game of Thrones, I just wouldn't watch season 8 because it was toss and rubbish, and it just made me feel like I'd wasted 7-8 years of my life. I don't skip this when I rewatch Sharpe at all, and I don't think anyone does. They're just curious as to how it came about. So let's start with Marcus. You're going to give everybody, because this worked really good last time, and it means you get a word in edgeways before all the actors take over. So tell us about the historical context of what was the point of Sharpe's Gold with the book.
So the book's really, I mean, again, it's really different. So in the book, Sharpe's basically on a special mission that Bernard Cornwell writes for the 95th to get a load of gold back to basically fund the building of the lines of Torres Vedras, which was this completely impregnable line not far out of Lisbon that the French army could never capture the capital, and which in history worked really well. The French attacked it once and they could never go all the way up, and it was like the Maginot Line in the First World War. It's loads of series of redoubts with trenches defending between them. The film goes a completely different angle with the gold, and we end up with the Aztec element of the gold, but there's some really interesting historical nuggets. Whereas in the book, Sharpe ends up blowing up Almeida, which is one of the biggest pre-atomic explosions, this huge gunpowder magazine that goes off. This takes a completely different angle, but the nice bits are we get some things that aren't really well represented. So we have the provost, or the staff corps cavalry, as they technically were. So these are the forerunners to the military police, one of the earliest ones. And the Duke of Wellington actually set them up. There's always been a provost marshal for a few hundred years, but he set up 4 troops of provost to basically police and try to limit the amount of looting by the British and Allies into Spain and Portugal. So one of these kind of behind the scenes, it's almost like administration that you don't really get in war films because people want to run around and do all the shooting. Actually, the admin and the policing of it is a really important angle, which you need to get there and you need to work with the Allies. Then with the Allies, you've got the guerrillas. Here, we've got the Aztec angle. but not all of the guerrillas in the Spanish War of Liberation and in Portugal were nice people. There are certainly cases where they were using horrendous warfare on both sides. Now, the French committed atrocities in Portugal and Spain. It's something I'm always want to highlight, that it was horrendous. What the French did is unforgivable. But the Spanish and the Portuguese gave as good as they got. And if they captured the French, some of them would be quite willing to torture people to death. And we kind of get that insight with the meowing and the skin flaying, but actually people were castrated and left to die. And then there's also the hanging, but there's a little favourite scene of mine, which is a shooting competition. And that's where we kind of get into how good is the Baker rifle against other weapons. And it's a really nice scene of Sharpe and Ellie shooting. And it was something the rifles were taught to do, which was shoot at a figure of a man and actually hit a target. So that's a really nice nod to actually the rifles training as well, where they were taught to shoot 200 plus yards. And so that's something they would have been able to do. And then we take a completely different turn and goes a little bit down to the horror route. But the historical nuggets are in there, and I think they're enjoyed by the fans and the history geeks like us.
There's also the intercepted message of Marshal Salt. Remember, they intercepted messages covered with the skin ribbon?
Yes.
And so that's real? That Marshal Salt did have his messages intercepted? Or was that...
Yeah, so the Napoleon's messages were actually coded. And they were intercepted by, I can't remember what rank he ended up. I think he ended up as a general eventually, but Major Scoville.
Scoville, yeah, I read about that, yeah.
And he cracked the codes. Yeah, pre-Enigma codes. They were written in books, diaries, and he cracked the codes. And actually eventually ended up as the head of the Staff Corps Cavalry, the Provost. But he was an adjutant, an ADC, and he specialised in staff work, and he got his head around the codes. So the French were knowing that the messages were being intercepted. The guerrillas are going to get them, but they didn't think they were cracking the codes. So a bit like the U-571 disaster of a film. But when the Enigma code was captured, it meant that the Germans were still sending their codes, and they didn't think they were being cracked. And the same was happening in the Peninsular War. The British and the guerrillas were getting those codes and actually able to hear a lot more of what's happening. And that inevitably would help shorten the war.
I have to ask as well, so Zach's sitting and nodding his head, because there's a big part of what you specifically research, isn't there, Zach, that is done really, really well in gold.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it just last night, actually, kind of prepping and reminding myself, because it's been ages since I last saw it. And I was actually really impressed in terms of, when you watch something, you know that there needs to be artistic license to make the story work. But actually, in terms of the raw details behind kind of attitudes to the Provost, depicting how Wellington has this conundrum about, am I really harsh in terms of how I discipline my men to make sure that they don't start plundering when they go into France and therefore turn the population against me or not? All of those things come together really neatly in a way that's put together quite kind of truthfully. I mean, I think the portrayal of Wellington is probably a touch more sympathetic. Marcus is kind of shaking his head in abject fury at my suggestion of that. But you can understand why they're doing that. I mean, Wellington kind of being this hero figure. But even little things like the pardoning of deserters in order to make a point. Okay, so Wellington never had a situation where he pardoned 50 deserters in one go, as happens towards the end of the episode. But he was inclined, when the opportunities arose, to go, you know what, I'm going to get more out of making a gesture of pardoning this individual and saying, look, in the right circumstances, I will cut you some slack, than to just hang everybody.
Which is unfair on Skillicorn, because he gets hung for a chicken. Those guys desert. We lose 50 rifles and they get off scot-free. It's crazy.
Exactly. And this is what I found really interesting, that actually those complexities play out. And this is where the Provost element comes in really neatly, because the Provosts were hated for the fact that they were incredibly harsh. They were the only people in the entire army who had the power to hang people on sight. If you were caught in the act, that was it. If the Provost found you, if you got caught by anybody else, you had to have a trial. And that's where you could kind of find ways to get out of it a little bit. But the Provost, they could just string you up. And there are accounts that we have of people who've been hung. And they had, the particular one that strikes me is this guy who had been hung, and he'd had the apple that he'd stolen rammed inside his mouth just before he died. so that as troops were marching past, they could see very clearly, look, you even take the apples and we catch you, you're going to be dead. And it created a huge amount of resentment, which plays out so well in terms of that dynamic between Sean's Major Sharpe and Ian as Lieutenant Ayres.
Speaking of, let's get to some of the actors, because David and I would like to know, had any of you read the book before you made the programme? So were you aware of how much it differed? Ian?
I hadn't read the book, no. I knew that it was a different story, so, you know, I just spoke with Tom Clegg about, you know, his view of the story and the story arc, and Richard Moore was instrumental for me.
Mm-hmm. Instrumental for everyone, I think.
Yes.
Hugh, had you read it?
No, I hadn't read it. It was all it all happened quite quickly with me, actually. I think I got the job and started it fairly quickly afterwards. No, I hadn't read the book.
Peter?
No, I'm afraid I didn't read the book. Oh, sorry.
No, but it's just like, as actors, I think maybe that helped, because had you been trying to reconcile in your head everything you'd read with everything that wasn't happening, that didn't correspond with it on set, it might have been a bit odd. Abel, had you read the books?
No, I didn't. I think it wasn't available, a version in Spanish, and at that time I couldn't read English quite well, so I didn't.
Jason?
Yeah.
I knew you would be the class swap.
As soon I've mentioned this before, but as soon as I got the job, I bought Recollections of Rifleman Harris, and I bought the first 3 novels that Sharpe was going to shoot. So Rifles, Gold Eagle. Quickly devoured those. When I came back in the hiatus between Paul and Sean, I bought a couple more of the novels. So by the end of the first year, I'd read up to Enemy. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was able to go up to our executive producer and say, there's only one actor in the world that can play Hakeswill. And that is, you know who I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
The rest is history. Yes. So I did. I've read the books. I've read them now like 3 times each. I'm a nutter. I love them so much.
Do you know what then? So I think this was meant for the actors, but I'd really like to ask Matt this question, seeing as this, like, you really did love this book, didn't you? Do you look at it and just hate that they couldn't do the book storyline, or do you love it anyway?
I love it. I think it's not the book, but it stands up as a good adventure film. You know, you've got, you know, you've got 2 baddies in it. You've got Ian's character, who, you know, goes through the redemption of spending time with the chosen men, which everybody better. And then you've got Abel, who's just a fantastic baddie through the whole second half of the film. So it's just a lot of fun. It's a little bit of a break from the usual Sharpe episodes, but the book was the book that got me reading. So when they made the film of this, I was pleasantly surprised, because it wasn't what I'd read, but that meant the thing that I held really dear stayed very dear.
Oh, and they kind of, as well, for those of you, so the 4 of you that have read the books and love the books, they want to know as well, the listeners, what would you have made if you'd picked up Sharpe's Gold and found the film plot in a Bernard Cornwell book? Would you think he'd lost his mind?
No, it's the lack of a battle. There has to be some big battle nearby, and we're involved in the fringes or instrumental in it. I mean, the whole thing of blowing up the Almeida, all that goal, was so brilliant.
Certainly the Almeida bit is really good, and they do later when the Sharpe's mission, which isn't based on any of the books, the favourite episode of mine. Yeah. And that's got a huge explosion at the end for almost like no reason, and that's great. I love, it's the movie Hollywood experience. Everyone wants the good guys to be running away in slow motion from an explosion and win the day, right?
Exactly.
We have some fantastic questions that have come in for Abel. I absolutely love them. A lot of people, including Gary Fowler, are obsessed with how much you suffered wearing that armour. They said, how bad was it in the heat, dressed up like that?
Yeah. Well, I had to, I remember a scene that we shot inside of a tent, and that scene was shot on a very, very hot day in the middle of the afternoon with I don't know how much degrees, but very hot outside. But it was a night scene, so they had to cover the whole tent with the black fabrics, and it was like an oven inside of there. And I was wearing like 4 different suits, all of them very heavy, and was awful. I remember my sweat was going up over that armor. Was very, very complicated. But well, we survived finally, and it looks like it was okay.
In fact, Abel, we were, when we arrived in August of 1994, there had been like 3 months of drought. There had been no rain whatsoever. And at one point, when we were shooting Gold, it was towards the end on a marching scene where we all had to wear all of our kit, packs, hat. It was 94 degrees. Mm-hmm. Now, what that is in Celsius, it's 30-something, 33, 4.
Yeah.
It was murder. But true, Abel, you also had your cave set.
Yeah.
And that was also covered in curtains and deep inside. That was so warm. I remember going in there for the end shoot. It was crazy. Yeah. But yeah, it was very hot that year. Hottest ever Sharpe experience. That episode. That year.
Also, I think the place where we had the set was in the middle of a desert. We had a long way from the city to there. Yes. There was almost anything, nowhere. So it wasn't quite comfortable. And but I felt like there was some energy in the group that made we superior all these difficulties. And I don't know, but I remember that like a wonderful experience. And also I didn't see the movie since many years ago, but I had a good memories of what I saw.
There was aside from making great TV, there was a lovely family element to the whole cast and crew. So you guys entering it, I'm sure you felt it, you know, no one was like, oh, who are these new guys? It was like, hey, join the family. We want to make sure you're cool because we know this can be difficult being out in the Crimea. So
that's really true.
Yeah.
That's very true. You know, from the top down, you know, Sean was always very welcoming, you know, and would speak to everybody, and you and all the chosen men.
Yes, it was not. Yeah,
Jason, were the cave, was that all sets? Because most of the rest of the Sharpe is normally outside. If we're not in a barracks or in Wellington's headquarters, the chosen men are in the countryside, aren't they? But then there's quite a lot of this takes place with Abel and Jane and people in the caves. So I'm assuming that was a set made?
Yes, that was a set that was built at Polycure Studios. I'm going to try and find a little photo of it. So yeah, it was where we normally take the unit photo. You see, I think I might have a photo somewhere.
Because we're just looking at your photos of the scenery, and that's something that you must have moved locations the way you were showing us previously, because it's just beautiful scenery that we see in Sharpe's Gold. And I think Ian's character, and along with a few others, are like looking out over these stunning cliffs.
Yes, those stunning. They're sort of. We mean the White Mountains, the ones that have the white cliffs over kind of effect. Yeah.
Yes.
This is Ian after being too long in the cave. Yeah. That location is called Belogorsk, and it's been used a lot. So it's recognizable from quite a few episodes. Sharpe's Enemy, where they shoot the rockets.
Yes.
That's the same. Yeah, but they use the locations really well in Sharpe Gold. I noticed that for the first time. They really make them look amazing. Yeah. So Belogorsk means literally white mountain. So they kind of were a white cliffs over. So Natasha's telling me. But while we're on the scenery, I noticed that the show is really song heavy as well. Do you notice that, Alex and guys?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And actually, we had a question come in about that, and I think it's John, isn't it? Because the person wanted to know, how did they pick Hagman's songs for the episodes? When they pick up The Deserters, he sings Poor Old Soldier, and it's brilliant. Always curious if he chose the song to fit the scene or if it was written and he had to learn it. It was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, John was the music man. He's in charge. I mean, you know, if I sung a wrong note or I banged the tambourine in the wrong way, he would be, on me straight away. Jason, that beat wasn't invented till 1839. So yeah, John Townes was defo the music man. He must have chosen them all, because they're all appropriate, right? There's the Deserter song, there's the Poor Old Soldier song.
Really appropriate. And he even sings a special one of Skillicorn's Chicken, doesn't he?
Yes.
He was amazing.
Yeah, John Townes.
He was amazing. I was lucky enough to work with him again on Warhorse, because he was the music man there. So that was a very emotional reunion with him. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
He is outstanding. When he came on here and what did he redo Over the Hills for the NHS, didn't he? Way back in the original lockdown. Hugh,
yes.
Is there a story Sable Crow would like to know behind the "Don't lick me, laddie" line, or did you just ad-lib that?
Oh, that's interesting. I think yes, I think I probably ad-libbed it. I think I was given quite a lot of license to do a bit of that. I hadn't long finished. I did this Clive Barker film, Nightbreed, not long before that, in which I was allowed to do an awful lot of ad-libbing. So maybe it had gone to my head. But I think yeah.
They also all want to know: did you learn the bagpipes, or were you faking it?
It was all completely faked, I'm afraid.
Oh no, that's devastating, because someone wanted to know how long did it take you to learn them as part of your craft.
No.
Speaking of other things that people remember from the episode, Abel, the meow. It's bonkers, and people would like to know. First of all, one of our listeners would like to know if you would do the meow for us right now.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I remember how to do it. No. I wouldn't like to disappoint you. Seriously.
No worries.
Maybe if we all do it first.
Sorry.
I'll do it first, then you can have the courage, okay? I'll make a fool of myself first. Here you go, Abel.
And that's led. I'm not going to force you to do the meow. Nancy Timmer wanted to know, where did it come from? It's the strangest thing ever on Sharpe. I love it. I'm a crazy cat lady though, but I love it.
I don't know who invented that.
But did it say it in the script?
It wasn't the script, yeah.
It was.
I think so, yeah.
Because then Margaret Brown, I think, wanted to know. So they've kind of have it in their head now that this is something you were so immersed in the character that you just started meowing like a cat. And she says it made her curious about auditions for these characters. So did you turn up at the audition and meow and they were like, that's our man, it's got to be him?
That's our man. I don't think it went like that. No. I think I was. I don't remember if I did an audition to do that, because I think the year before of this movie I was doing something with Muir in Spain. I think it was called a serial called Delantero All in the Game or something like that.
Oh yes, yeah, I did that too.
I did a character in that, and from that they offered me to do the character in Sharpe. I think it was like that how it worked.
And Alejandro worked on that too.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
I enjoy
Peter, Nancy has another question. These are great. She says, can you draw, and are you artistic in other fields, much like dear old Daddy Nugent?
Not really. I mean, I can play the piano, I can sing, I can't draw.
Okay.
Right.
They would like, Jack Barton would also like to know, did you have any interactions with your on-screen family before shooting began that would lend a sense of realism to the distress the characters felt, or even just hanging around on set during shooting, or was it just a sort of show up on the final day, final scene sort of deal?
No, I don't think so. I can't really remember. I think, who played my daughter?
Jane Ashbourne.
Jane, yes.
Right, that's right. I think maybe I met her before.
Rosalind Linehan.
Rosalind Linehan, yes. I love Rosalind Linehan. We became great friends because we hitchhiked to Bakhchisarai, which is a famous place.
Wow.
And when we drove back, we hitched, and she said to me, "You got to give this driver some money." I said, "No, I think they would find that rather offensive." Of course, I was completely wrong. But all the things I remember about that film, which is a long time ago, isn't it? First of all, a lot of my part was supposedly in Esperanto, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. So was it Esperanto or was it some gobbledygook? I don't know, but I learned it very, very accurately. I remember that. I remember also, because of the contract I had, I didn't have to wait around in Ukraine for my scenes. So I flew back and forth. I flew back and forth very often. And I came in that little plane and I discovered Istanbul, where I'd never been before. I was there about 4 or 5 times, and I used to come back in that little plane with all those Ukrainian doctors and teachers who were working in Istanbul as prostitutes. And each one of them, when they queued up, had bought with their earnings a refrigerator or an oven or something else. So the queue for this tiny plane took hours. I remember that. And the other thing I remember is when we went to, where did we go to? We went to, from Simferopol, we went to, what's the other? Yalta. I remember being woken up in the night because I thought somebody was in my room. And there was nobody in my room, but they were the biggest cockroaches I've ever seen, which I then flung out. But I enjoyed the whole thing very much. I enjoyed it.
Did we go to Yalta in Jason on, and was it on Battle, or was Gold all in Simferopol?
What we did is on September the 1st, when the hotel rates change in Yalta, that's when we moved down there. So we on the move, we shot some scenes at Belogorsk and continued from there. So we went out to location, we packed up and went on to Yalta from location.
Right.
So yeah, that was on the 1st of September. So we'd gone from like the middle of August, and we shot all the stuff in the cave and that kind of stuff in Yalta at the Polycure Studios. Yeah.
I remember being such a relief to get to Yalta because it was so lovely comparison with
beautiful, lovely. Even with the
yes, quite. But I mean, the ex-KGB sanatorium we were in Simferopol was hideous. And in the podcast I listened to earlier this morning with the crew, they were talking about the water problem and about how you had to take a bucket of water to splash the loo. You had to have a bucket of water in your room. And I think mineral water was flown in from Germany. And wasn't Chris Burt held by the mafia one night about something or other that in order to...
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. But there was a lot of mafia in that building.
Yes.
They moved us into this place called the Tavria Hotel, which is on outskirts of Simferopol, or simply Awful, as it's been known. And there were tons of sort of shell-suited mafia types in the bar. Yeah. I mean, they were everywhere, kind of. And we were kind of protected because the service providers for Sharpe were a group called the East-West Association, and they were like co-producers, and they were pretty tough as well. So I think we're protected. But the funny thing is Skillicorn, Phil Dowd, the guy who played Skillicorn, he was repeatedly trying to chat up the gangsters' girlfriends. He didn't know who they were. Hey, nice girl. Hey, are you that mafia geezer bear? Hey. So that was lots of mafia hanging around there.
Okay.
We have a string of questions for Ian, who it turns out there are many, many Sharpe fans out there with massive man crushes on you. Chris Etchingham says, just how devilishly handsome is he, and how easy is it acting and remembering all those lines while sat on a horse?
Well, I am very handsome, of course, but the costume was fabulous. What a costume. The helmet was a real issue for me, actually, because they're very uncomfortable, and it would often sort of slip off the head. So we sort of had to glue it to my head in the end. But I've ridden all my life. So I was riding. We had horses when I was a kid, and I went to a posh school where they had horses at the school. So I love horses. Feel very comfortable.
There were a lot of people that sort of reference how much work you had to do with horses, so it's probably invaluable experience for you.
Yeah, I had a few arguments with the Russian handlers of the horses, because their idea of keeping the horses in line was to whack them on the nose.
Yeah, we've had this from Brian Cox before, and saying that he lost it with them for punching a horse at one stage, but they seem to have been quite brutal with controlling the animals.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back on it, it's just a cultural thing. They were always surprised by my anything I had to say about that, because they thought I was a bit mad, because that's just the way that was the way that they were currently dealing with it, So remembering lines on a horse wasn't too bad for me. The only other thing I had with the horse was, which was very good. I can't remember what it was called even, but it was very good. Except one time it took a fancy to a mare while I was riding it. So all of a sudden, I'm in the process of jigging up and down, I remember.
Lucky you. There's one bit though, Ian, where it's brilliant. When we've nicked Skillicorn back from you, and you hold up the chicken and you sort of look at us and ride back, and it's like a fluid motion where you're holding the chicken up and riding back and forth, looking at Sharpe and then riding out with your provost. It's really masterful. If
I can just say, Ian Johnson wanted to tell you, I loved it when you waved that chicken at Sharpe. Supreme defiance. P.S. You handled your horse very well. I used to teach riding, so can pick up on the failings. And he asked if you'd ridden before. But yes, that is his favourite moment, you waving the chicken at Sean Bean.
Well, thank you.
Other people, Richard and Dan for starters, are referencing, they both reckon that punch from Sean Bean looked like it connected for real, and how much did it hurt?
Well, Sean is great at that physical aspect of acting. I wasn't quite, you never quite know what you're going to get, because with Sharpe, as I'm sure a lot of people have said, there's not a lot of rehearsal because there's so much going on. You've got all these enormous, scenes with extras in the background and everything else like that, that it's kind of a one-take deal, as certainly for the actors who aren't the stars. In that scene, I think he hits me 3 or 4 times throughout the film, and everyone felt, I think he judged it perfectly, as hard as he could hit me without actually damaging me.
Mm. Did they put a breast pad on you though?
They did, I think, yes. So that's the thing. So yeah,
because
it felt like you'd been in a fight, and I was a young actor at the time. I wasn't sure exactly how these things were always done, so it was a kind of an education. And I took that away as well. I would probably speak to the other actor a little bit more than Sean did, but I don't think he had time always to do that. But yeah, I really respected, because I think it looks great, and I think his fight with Abel is astounding. Watching that live, I was frightened.
If I could, Jack Glanfield actually says, what was it like filming that final fight with Eyre, Sharpe, Harper in the cave temple for Abel? And did you scare people on the set as much as some of the audience? My wife won't even watch the episode again.
Oh, so I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for that. No, it was, I remember a lot my dying shot, because I think it was Dara who killed me with a kind of a gun with six bullets at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has actually. Andy Wilson has said that is the best death scene in any Sharpe. Sorry, Jason. And they say, did you plan it yourselves, or was that just all in the script?
That's it. You lost Jason.
Oh, it's true. In fact, in the scene, Dara and Sean have to kill El Casco. It's not just one of them. They both have to gang up on Abel. He's so hard.
No, it was very scary for me. Very scary for me that moment. Yeah.
They also had the horror film music going all the way through that. It really helped, and the blurry focus and the shaky focus, because Dada and Ellie are tripping, aren't they? They're tripping on that powder that gets blown into their face. Mm-hmm. So it's all very very scary.
And we did boost Ian's ego, so I must tell you that several of the lady viewers have wanted us to tell you that they respect how you were so evil yet looking so good in the episode, Abel.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. No, I don't know. I mean, I didn't try. I didn't really try to act the obvious bad guy. I mean, I think it's quite a mysterious character, because you don't really know where it comes from. Even in Spain, it's very surprising to find something Azteca coming from Mexico, in doing things in that period in Spain. I don't know historically if this is possible or not, but I think the good part of the character for me was that it wasn't too evident. I mean, I didn't have to act as a bad guy to be a bad guy, and I think I remember that it's an annoying character without acting as a bad guy. You know, I don't know if I explained myself. I'm so sorry. But,
no, absolutely.
You know, I have the image that sometimes I feel like good villains in movies history are the ones that are lovable as well as awful. You know, for example, it comes to my mind the Anthony Hopkins, Silence of the Lambs, where he's absolutely lovable. Is the guy who you would like to live with, but you know that he's gonna eat you, and that's
charismatic.
That's the full way to show some bad guy, you know.
I think that's the tribute to your acting of it, isn't it? Because you obviously played against the badness, which makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But once I had to do a character that was a terrorist from ETA, and he was also a meloman. He loved music.
Yeah.
Was the main thing in his life, and the hardest thing was to try to find this marvelous sensibility of the character, which is part of kind of an artist, but it's very, very, very magnetic. You love it, and at the same time, it's some guy that have the real conviction that he has to kill people to be happy. You know, it's but it's very contradictory. But it's nice. It's nice. It's a good material to work with. You know.
Yeah.
Hugh, people would like to know, there were a lot of questions about your sort of freedom to make the role because it wasn't in the books, which we touched on before, but they want to know, how did you get ready to play the role because you didn't have anything like that to go from? And did you consciously go out of your way to make your character unlike Hogan or Nairn?
Well, as I say, it all happened quite quickly. That I was quite taken, you know, really one of those things that happened quite quickly. Before I knew it, I was on the plane to Simferopol, and so I hadn't, I hadn't actually seen any of the other of the first or second series at the time. So I didn't really know what had been established beforehand, and I think I just kind of. I think when I went to meet Tom and the Hubbards who were casting it, I just took it off the page and I instinctively came up with something that was actually what Mungo Monroe ended up being quite like. So, I mean, it was not. I don't actually even know this. I mean, because the character, fundamentally, it was a functionary, wasn't it? The character who is played by three different actors in three different series. And
They're different characters. They are different characters, though.
Yeah, but it's like that role of intelligence.
That role,
officer.
exploring officer.
In the story, the function is the same, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Basically. So, I mean, I think we probably all were allowed to bring our own take on it, but are the other? This is terrible ignorance of me. Are the other two characters in the books, or
yes,
is
Hogan and Nairn are in the books? Yeah, in fact, Hogan goes through all of the books.
Okay.
I think Nairn is just Marcus, if you correct me, is Nairn just in company and enemy and
Nairn's at the end. Hogan goes all the way through and dies of the big fever. So we see a lot more of Brian Cox's character. But I think it was. I presume it was a conscious decision. Then once they'd lost Brian Cox, to rotate the intelligence officers, because you can see it quite a few through Ross. It feels conscious to recast it.
Except Nairn is in the books, right?
Nairn's in the books, but Ross and
Monroe. No.
It's probably a bit unfair to ask Hugh this because he's not a book aficionado, but it has been asked if Scots were underused in the production of Sharpe. I guess that's one more for the historians, isn't it?
I guess it probably is. I mean, there wasn't were there many other Scots around? Brian Cox, of course.
Irish.
Brian?
No, sorry. You mean his character was Irish?
Oh, yes. Okay, yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't really answer that.
No, there's not many, are there? Is that Scott? Should there be more?
I was trying to think that there's some of the ones like Sharpe's Fury, which has got Lord Lyndoch Graham. He's in, but that's one of the books that was written later and like shoehorned in. He's a great character, Graham. So no, I don't think the Scots are very well represented in the books either, unfortunately.
Yeah, and thinking about the series, I mean, you see the Black Watch in the background, which appear in a couple of shots out there with their kilts and so on. But they're not hugely represented
in Sharpe's sword. They turn up and the bagpipe major leads the attack, and no one even explains where the Black Watch have turned up from. They just are there.
I mean, they're in the India stories a bit more.
Isn't Lennox a Scot in Eagle?
Yes. Yeah. But I think Bernard was quite not obsessed, but Bernard liked that motif of the Irish English thing. He liked a bit of that, Bernard. So I think he wove that through mostly than a Scottish English antagonism.
There's quite a strong Irish vibe in the books and production, I guess.
Yeah.
With Darrow and at least.
Well, in fairness, the Irish were about a third of the British Army. So, but then having said that, the Scots were probably about a quarter of the British Army. So,
Ian, Jake Barton says, don't be scared, it's all right. Thought you did a great job of being an arse in the beginning and really turning things around to be more likeable by the end. Takes skill to do that, I imagine. Was it written that way, or did you try and shoehorn that in so that it wasn't like you didn't want to become a caricature?
Oh, that's a good question. It was written, but obviously, Tom was very good at allowing the actors, if they had a good argument, to pursue what they felt. And I thought that Eyre was a terrific character, and he's trying to behave as if he's older than he is. He's very inexperienced, and he's in this difficult position of being. He must anticipate that it's going to be deeply unpopular. His angle on, policing the army. And I think also, he's got a few other things going on. I think he has the hots for Ellie and doesn't really know how to deal with that. So he's sort of rude to her. And then, jealous of Sharpe. So there's a lot going on, and I think that he's learning on the job, and I think that, he gradually realizes what's important. So I do think there is a real human journey for him, although looking back on it, perhaps it could have been done in a more polished way.
We have the inevitable question as well. So the first reunion we did had Sean in it, and it transpired that he liberated half the set when he left after each episode as collectibles. So everyone would like to know, did you retain anything from your time on Sharpe? Ian?
I don't think I did. I bought a Russian watch, which broke after about 6 months. But it was very attractive. But I think that's all I took.
You didn't take the helmet home then?
No, hated the helmet.
Peter?
No, what was there to take? I don't remember anything.
Well, after Sean was finished, not a lot.
Oh, right. No, I didn't take it. I was very, very...
I have a flagon somewhere, and I think it's on the set of Sword, perhaps, with Monroe's something or other, somebody, who's very appropriate kind of... I haven't got it here, unfortunately. If I'm going to do another of these, I will find it and bring it to the screen next time if we do one about Sword or a battle.
Was it pewter or porcelain? What was it?
It was porcelain.
Porcelain. What I thought of when I was watching is that crazy hat you wear.
I know. And that hat created so many problems with lighting and all that kind of stuff. And then it was altered because it was proving too much to. I was very grateful for it because the heat was so.
I was gonna say it was a great sunshade, but it looks totally like a lampshade on your head.
Yeah. Yes,
brilliant. Yeah. I love it.
Abel, did you take anything?
Well, I bought some wonderful caviar, which was very, very good, but I ate it. So I have a memory of this feeling. But also I have a good story about Sharpe that I will never forget it. In Spain, Sharpe wasn't known at all. So when they called me to do that, I thought, okay, well, it was one word movie. But when I went to London, a friend of mine told me, wow, are you going to do something in Sharpe? That's marvelous. It's great. I love it. It's the best TV show I ever seen. Well, I thought, okay, that's wonderful. Then we had to travel to Crimea, and my wife was coming with me, Gloria, and the company, they sent us the tickets to take the plane. We went to Heathrow to take the plane going to Istanbul. And in the tickets it said Mr. and Mrs. Falk. And you know that in Spain, women don't change the name when they get married. So my wife is still called Gloria Casanova, not Gloria Falk. And in the door, in the control of passports in Heathrow, they said, okay, this doesn't work. You're not called Mrs. Falk, so you can't fly to Istanbul. We said, wow, look at that. In Spain, women don't change the name, though. So she is my wife. We have an ID, libro de familia, a family book we call in Spanish. We had documentation to prove it, but this guy didn't believe us until we took a letter from Sharpe's company, giving us, telling me, okay, you have to come to London and then you will fly to Istanbul. I showed this letter to that guy, and this guy read Sharpe, and he said, no, are you going to work in Sharpe? Yes, I said, yeah, I'm going to do a character there. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Go. Then I had to go through a couple of more controls inside of Heathrow, and all of them were waiting for me, saying, oh, you are the one who's working in Sharpe. Go. So I really realized that Sharpe was a very important thing in England, and that it opened all the doors.
Yeah, there's some worrying things to be said about airport security in that case, but that's pre 9/11.
I have a similar story. I'll try and do it quickly. So we're shooting in Turkey, 4th year, and Turkey, obviously, Istanbul. So I had a few days off, 4, 5, 6 days off. I said to Tom, can I nip to Ukraine? Because Natasha had taken our new baby to live in Yalta while I was shooting in Turkey. So I had been used to going in and out of Yalta, Simferopol with impunity, but traveling as a private citizen, which I was at that point, without the all-encompassing shield of Sharpe, I get to the customs and they didn't want to let me in. I wanted, I wanted to pay, and I made the mistake of saying, I'm coming to see my wife and daughter, and my wife and son. And he's like, oh, that's not right. No, you must be on. So luckily, if you remember Igor was the interpreter, very well spoken. He's Natasha's best mate, and he could see through the window that I was getting through some sort of trouble. So he had to come through. He spoke to one of the colonels at the airport, said, look, that's a guy from Sharpe, and I was let through. Thank God. But funnily enough, that weekend, they showed a Sharpe marathon on Russian telly. So when I came back through, the guy was my buddy. I was like, yeah, fuck you, mate. So I had the same sort of inverse sort of situation.
I would be failing our listeners if I did not go round the room and ask you all about. So they love hearing about the privations of filming Sharpe in the Crimea and how much you all suffered. Not when I think they stopped short of laughing at David Troughton because he was actually genuinely very ill, wasn't he? But they love hearing about things like Bacongate. So what is your worst memory of filming Sharpe's Gold? Hugh?
Well, I was very unfortunate in that I got shingles. And it was ghastly. And they misdiagnosed it. And they had these extraordinary Ukrainian doctors who came around with sort of chef's hats on. And they suggested rubbing all sorts of stuff into it. And by the time I had my first break and went back to England, it was like I've still got a photograph somewhere, this suppurating thing on my chest, which was the, and I had to shoot the long scene with El Casco, with Abel. One night, it's a big night shoot. Do you remember Abel?
Yeah.
Yes. And I'd been absolutely confined to bed with Nurse Hugh Fraser looking after me morning, noon, and night. And there was a lot to say on that scene. And I remember actually, this thing about Dr. Footlights, how you rise to the occasion, thinking I'd never get through the night. But we did, and it was done. But every time I look at it, I think, God, you would never know how much agony I was actually in then. So, as I say, that was the worst part of it all. And then when everything got better because you get acyclovir and get better quite quickly when you get back to the UK, but they didn't give me any of that. It was a great drama altogether.
Like Hugh, we had to quit. We had to stop filming one night. I remember.
That's right. And Chris doubled for my back. There was a shot of Chris, the back view. Yeah. It was hideous.
In fact, I think I videoed you being treated by the doctor. Remember? His story.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. However, and the scars have all gone now, I'm pleased to say, but it was a nasty moment.
But we were used to that on Sharpe. We were used to these weird physical things happening to our bodies.
Yes. And David Troughton was terribly ill for ages, wasn't he?
And John Tamms as well. Was he not? He basically disappeared weight loss wise, didn't he?
John Tamms missed lots of filming and was holed up in his room for a lot of the time. Yeah.
Muir thought it was terribly good for you, to be ill, and kind of he was a great it'll make a man of you, kind of this kind of.
Well, that's where I sort of take my title of my book from, because I feel the Crimea completely wasted us, made us pissed off, made us wanting to kill the producers, and it made us look like soldiers, who were on campaign.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we were gaunt, we were pissed off, we were starving, and we would love to have killed our producers and directors sometimes.
Yeah.
Peter, what about you? At what point did you think, bugger this, I'm going home?
No, I enjoyed it because I was very curious about the country. Mm-hmm. The cast was very nice. The only bad moment, I'm afraid I mentioned already, when that actor threatened to turn me into pulp. And I was terrified, frankly, because this had never happened to me before. Otherwise, it was fine. I travelled around, so I made friends with a lot of people, and it was great.
Well, for me, I was 24 or something. I was so thrilled to get the job and to go. I'd been in Berlin in 91 for the fall of the Berlin Wall. So to go to Ukraine was such a thrill. And I look back as well and feel, as Westerners sometimes do. You almost fetishize these situations because, you're looking at really poor people who are really struggling. I mean, you just going into some of the local shops, it was extraordinary. There'd be like sort of a pack of cigarettes and a battery on the shelves. And, as actors and, well, just as people, you find that fascinating. So I do feel conflicted about my reactions, but I found the whole thing very romantic, and this bizarre situation where, you've got a drought going on and, we're having to wash ourselves from these buckets. But I do appreciate, that I was a young, healthy guy, and that as time went on, I could feel that, other people were getting ill, actresses, were menstruating, etc. Were cockroaches everywhere, and it's just like, things were getting awful, and some of the food was probably the worst food I've ever eaten on any work that I've ever done. Sort of like rotting cauliflower at points. And actors love their food so much, and we're normally totally spoiled, So, it got to a point where we went on strike.
This is the bacon riot. Is this the Dimagey bacon riot, or is it another strike?
This is the Chernomorey water action.
Okay.
Which carry on, Ian, and I'll fill in when you.
So, and I found again, here I am, sort of trying to be mature and everything, but in the back of my mind, I'm absolutely thrilled. As an actor, I'm a Labour guy, but I never expected that I would ever be able to go on strike. And I remember calling my agent and saying, "Look, this is the situation. We feel that we need a short, sharp wake up to production in order to get this situation back to a reasonable level." And my agent, Jeanette Chalmers, was such a wonderful woman. She was totally supportive. And I remember we spoke to Equity as well, and they were horrified. They were saying, "Get back to work." As far as I remember. So it was a strange situation of your agent being more in favor of strike action than your union. And I remember a wonderful moment. Sorry, I'm rambling for ages here. But I remember a wonderful moment where we began the strike, and one or two of the actors felt that what that meant was that they were on holiday. So they started drinking vodka, and very quickly John Tams bursts out of his room and sends everybody back to sit in their rooms and wait patiently, explaining. He was like the shop steward, basically, explaining that we had to be serious about this. We had to be ready to work, and it was just magnificent. Watching him putting out the fire.
I think it was only Peter Hugo Daly that decided to have hair of the dog, basically, because the reason it came about is because we had several water cutoffs.
Yeah.
94 degrees. You want to come home. You want to shower. You want to wake up in the morning and you want to take a shit and flush it, and we weren't able to do that. So that happened a few times. There was a water meeting, and they said the next time you wake, and they said when we get to Yalta, everything will be fine. Everything's going to be great. If it happens, you can hold me to that. So the first morning when we got to Yalta, we turned on the taps. There was no water. So what pushed it was Sean had finally had enough. So Sean said, "That's it, lads. We're out on strike," and that was it. So if we didn't have Sean backing us up all the way, it probably wouldn't have happened like that. So he was the first one to call his agent. We had to wait. We were 3 hours ahead of London. So we had got up at 6 a.m. We're supposed to be down in our cars. So we had to wait for 3 hours for our agents to open. So we were kicking our heels on the corridor. The sort of classic situation where the big boss is trying to peel away the less strong ones, you know. But Sean, John, Dara, the top revolutionaries. So we were okay.
I have to ask, Matt, you're sitting here and this like inspired you not only to read but to do history as well. Have you got any questions you want to ask the guys?
I've got one for Peter, actually, because the Will Nugent character in it he's sort of mentioned all the way through until that great scene in the cave where you're sort of mumbling in your shirt. I was sort of wondering when you were offered it and you saw that and you have that great scene at the end with Jane as your memories starting to come back. Sort of what you thought of a role, and when your first appearance in the script is basically a bit out of it, mumbling in a dirty shirt in a Spanish cave.
I can't really remember, but I think I've played other parts that maybe were a bit similar in my life of people who didn't make much sense. So no, I found the whole thing interesting. I met the director I think once before Tom. I was happy to do it, and it was an adventure. It was a great adventure. I hadn't seen a lot of the Sharpe episodes, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I found the whole thing very interesting, and sorry to be very boring, but it was a pleasure.
I love that your whole approach seems to have been rather zen-like, and like the rest of it, all the madness passed you by.
It did, really. No, I do remember about the food being absolutely disgusting.
And that big dining hall, it was a kind of huge big dining. It was like being into a terrible institution, but corrective institution.
And do you remember all those women who cleaned the dining hall in the morning? But by 9 o'clock, when they cleaned it, they all went on to vodka.
Yes.
You used to see these huge glasses of vodka, and I thought, if only one could start now.
That was another bad memory I had, was that our driver passed out while driving the car because he was so drunk.
Oh, God.
and nearly drove into a telegraph pole.
The incident where in the car, Ian, which is in my book, From Crimea with Love, out now, pre-order from Unbound. So yes, it's called From Crimea with Love. So Ian was driving in Lyndon and my car. We're used to it by now. We just crash out. We get in the car and we crash. We know we might die. Hey, we're being paid. So on this particular morning, I think we weren't so hungover, so we were a bit awake. And the guy fell asleep and the car sort of veered. And we were kind of cool, like, hey, buddy. But Ian was absolutely freaked out. So, which was great because then we could go to the producers and say, because we'd always had this long running fight. They used to put us in minivans, all of us all together. Even Paul McGann at the beginning was chucked into a minivan. And we had to say, listen, we need to have cars. So then Sean got a car and then, we would be sharing cars. So there was a whole transport ruck going on. So it was great that it happened in front of Ian. So we could go to Chris Burton and say, look, see. Not that anything changed, but it was great to have Ian on our side.
Abel, what was your worst memory, other than obviously all the armour and the heat?
No, I think normal experiences are never remembered, and only hard or lovely or something, but some extremely something experiences are remembered. So I remember very much about that because I was living intensively that thing. It wasn't comfortable, the place, but I have to say that I learned how to take a shower with 1.5 liters of water, for example. That's very useful, absolutely. And also I think my memory is very selective, and I always remember the good things. So I have a very happy memories of that. And also unfortunately I could shoot quite a lot of movies in my life, and I can tell you that I was shooting in very, very much worse situations than the one we had in Crimea,
I think I've only known you about an hour and a half, but I'm sensing that you're one of these people that if you ever do lose your rag, people know they've gone too far because you're quite laid back, aren't you?
Yeah, no, that's right. I remember one day that, as I told you, I went there with my wife. Also, I was advised at the beginning that Chris or Muir, they told me, "Are you sure that your wife is going to come with you? Because Crimea is not exactly a place where to go on holidays." And I said, "Well, no problem. She would love to come with me." And that the first 2-3 days there was no food at all. We had some potatoes and something else, but not very much food. And I had to have a situation with Chris to say, "Okay, Chris, if you don't get an egg or something to do an omelet for Gloria, I'll have to do something." And I think I was a little bit upset because the egg appeared immediately.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because that year we were also, it was part of the budget constraints, and they hired one of the cheapest caterers ever in British film industry. They were awful, and they had such a weedy little food truck, and it was also dirty, and all the chefs were getting wasted 24 hours a day. I mean, they had to wake up at like 2 a.m. to feed us at 5, and they would party till 12 or 1. So, yeah.
You don't get to judge anyone about the amount of partying that they did, because I know what you and Lyndon were up to.
This is true.
Still want to drink with Cocky after the last podcast.
This is my lifelong ambition now, is a night out with Michael Cock.
Can we arrange this, Jason? Can we go post-lockdown beers with Cocky?
I think we'll have to once we're back to no lockdowns.
I love Cocky.
Yeah. Every story he had involved him getting someone wasted. It was brilliant.
Yeah. There's a great story which we will tell when we get to Sharp Sword, Hugh, and you'll hear. But anyway, it's worth it twice. Was Sean didn't like flying, so we were coming back on Sharp 3, and Sean decided to go overland to Moscow on the rail, and then fly to London, then fly to Lisbon. So it's massive circuitous route, and we were all flying direct from Simferopol to Lisbon, a flight that doesn't exist. It was built on a charter flight. So Cocky and John Tams and Sean and Igor the interpreter are on the train, and Cocky's drinking drinks with the stewardess, getting her drunk, having a lovely time, and he sort of persuades her to sit and light up one of these things they call a jazz cigarette, and just as he lit it, there was a bang at the door, and everyone pretended to be asleep, apart from Cocky. So the border guard comes in, takes a look. He must have been tipped off who they were. Took one look, probably counted the body, said "Хорошо," and went out again. But they all thought they were about to go down to Lubyanka for a few years. I'll let Cocky tell the story. It's in my book, From Crimea with Love.
Oh yes, it's not in the book, Jason.
Yes, it's my memoir.
When does it come out?
It comes out July the 7th.
July the 7th, yes.
But anyone that
you need to hire Hugh as your publicist for this. This is great.
Anyone that's doing this podcast now, I will send you a Word copy of it. That's the final draft.
Yes, because Hugh Fraser tells me he's already seen a pre-published. Yes, I know. Yeah.
Well, I'll send you one too. Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
Okay, lovely.
Just to give some people an idea of what it was like to fly in Russia those days, the flight that I took from Moscow to Simferopol, it was either that way or going back. I sat next to a woman with a chicken on her lap in the cage. As I sat there fumbling, trying to do up my seatbelt, which didn't work. But just to give you some idea of what it was like in those days.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when we would do the charter flight from Simferopol to Lisbon, we did it twice. We were getting completely wasted on the plane. But I had a death wish or something. When we came into land, Lyndon and I would stand up in the aisle, and we would surf as the plane landed. We'd be surfing, standing in the aisle. Yeah, exactly. So, we were doing some crazy stuff on those planes. It was like Air Force One and the Rolling Stones private plane mixed into one kind of thing.
The Russians probably looked at you two and just thought natural selection will take care of these idiots at some
Well,
point.
yes and no, because we would also, a part of that stash of jazz cigarettes that Cocky had, we would often put all of our collective stash into a cake when we flew to Lisbon. So we'd have a cake, a space cake, and someone decided to give the pilot a slice.
Oh, God.
And he ate it. He ate it. A slice of bloody space cake, and we were flying to fucking Lisbon. But yeah, the flights were crazy. All in my book.
Which comes out when?
July the 7th. It's by Unbound. You can pre-order now.
Okay.
Jason, there's another cast member, isn't there? Natasha, get round the other side of the flag. You are in Sharpe's Gold.
I was.
How did you channel yourself to portray a witch so convincingly?
Well, clearly Jason still feels I am one.
No. Sit.
So you are in the end of it, aren't you?
Yes, she is, but I don't see her. That's the trouble.
Oh, did it get cut?
It was inside that cave.
In the cave,
It was so hot.
It's a really realistic cave with no polystyrene anywhere.
Yeah.
I just say thanks to, just in case you never invite me back for one of these things, just to thanks to all the cast and everything, because these stories sort of opened everything up for me, and it was the first two shows that sort of made me convince my dad to buy me the book when we were on holiday for Sharpe's Gold. This exact copy right here.
Oh, wow.
So it's all your fault, really, as I'm sitting here surrounded by books that my bank manager complains about regularly. But I just wanted to say thank you very much for the shows, and Abel for making a conquistador's hat look menacing.
Oh,
Guys, thank you so much for coming
Ian,
on
thank
and
you,
reliving
Ian.
Sharpe's Gold for us.
Bye.
It's been outstanding. People have been dying for us to get to this episode because it is bonkers, but it's just as lovable as every other Sharpe episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you all for coming. That's great.